Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to be working on the Netrunner viewer a bit more, and I'd like to do sorting and filtering of the information this time. What that means is I'll show where we left off first. This is what our viewer kind of looked like from last time. I did a little bit cleaning on the side here just so it doesn't look as bad as we left it, but this is still basically the way we had it before. We have the various listings, and what I'd like to do today is I want to actually put a filter on this so we can show like just all the cards from a certain faction or all the cards of a certain side or a runner, and that should be good enough. First we have to add a little bar at the top, a little action bar. The one thing that's missing are things like going back. I mean, right now you can go back from here using the keyboard. Control B on the device, you'd have a back button as well. But I think we need to add that properly first. I'm just going to turn off my tablet here, or I'll just leave that. Okay, now to do that we have to put a main view. Let's start in the main view. This is where we have the navigator. And we also have, we want to have a little bar at the top with the page title and things like this. The navigator defines a region, defines the pages, and we just need to put a little title bar on that. Let's just design the title bar first. Top value net browser. We're going to use this part here. Panel dot equals top, and don't know what color to give it. Colors are these usually. Let's just make it white. And we're going to simplify this. We're going to say the navigation equals and we'll take the page titles from there. A nav. What this will do is it'll give us access to the page title, so we can actually do something like page title, quite literally. But these pages actually need titles now. I'm always uncertain of whether we put the title directly on the template here or on the actual individual views. And we'd have to make these pages first of all, so let's make this a page card view. And let's just say title equals card view. We'll put it here so we can actually modify the title later. But for now, let's just keep it simple. And card listing. Also going to make that a page. The reason I'm making it a page is because it has the title attribute. You can do this another way. It's just the simplest way. Card listing. Okay, page title. Well, it seems to be having fun reloading it. Card listing. Okay. So now we have the card listing. It shows card listing. I have no idea why I keep going on. This is something we have to fix, I guess. Something I probably... Wow, it's gone crazy. Okay, it stopped. I think it's queuing up, and I have a file that's history. I have to watch what happens. So if I click on it, now we see card view. If you go back, it goes back to card listing. That's what we wanted. We also want a... I'm going to put this right in the middle. Alignment equals center. And we want to have a back button as well. So let's say while can go back. It's back. Clicked. Go back. Seems fairly obvious. When you're doing completely the defaults, it may seem like a lot of work, but when you want to start customizing, it'll make a difference. Okay, now let's go to one of these pages. Why is it reloading infinitely again? Fun, fun, fun. Oh, it's doing that. Okay, let's go to a page, and oh, where'd my back go? Well, that's kind of unfortunate. My back button isn't there. So what did I do wrong? Let's do this way. This may be because the navigator itself doesn't have a back. How did we actually push the templates on? We know we have a back, and we know the back works. but the navigator itself might not have back, and maybe only in the context of the pages, which is actually wrong. Navigation equals router. Give this one a name. And kind of annoying. I do a full rebuild once, because what I may have done is I may have broken it because I've been switching branches that we've been working on with the code itself. And this, I never actually cleaned it up first, so I might have some weird stuff stuck in here. So if I do the full rebuild, it's quite possible that I fix whatever's causing it to go crazy. Okay, there's a back button now. It's right stuck in the middle, annoyingly. Maybe it's left. Okay, now it probably finally did the rebuild, and it has to regenerate the data now. I said before, we have an issue for this to actually put a little indicator. We have a few designs for a little indicator cup saying it's reloading. It's a lot clearer than looking down in the log file. And now we have a back button. Back actually works. And this may seem really unusual that I had to put navigation equals router here, and I think this is just a small hole in the APIs that a navigator on its own was never meant to provide its own history. That is, it was always meant to be part of a router, and therefore this object itself, navigator, doesn't actually have a history. So when we have the navigation as main nav, while go back says, look, I don't know how to go back because navigator doesn't know how. But since the navigator itself, since I redid this model, this should actually work. So I have to put a note here that I shouldn't have actually needed this. This is the typical approach, but we shouldn't actually need to have that. Okay, but this works for now. So we have a back button, so when we click on things, we can go back. No, we went back again. I don't know why there's two of them. Okay, back. So I don't have to use the keyboard now. You can see what I'm doing, and you may want a different back color for that page, but today we're not going to work on the page. We want to work on other things in the main view. And we want to put a filter up there. So up here somewhere we want to put a filter button. And let's keep it nice and simple. First of all, we're going to add a let's actually add a switch to do this simply. It's not the nicest design, but it's the simplest way to do it right now. Switch alignment equals right. This will give us our switch. Give us a rather big switch. It's doing that reloading thing again, which is really a pain. And we're going to make this live then. So what we have is and now I want to put a panel here. I'm going to put a filtering panel. This will be where our filter options are. This should really be on the card listing page though, which makes it confusing with where we put the alignment. Actually, let's get back. Let's do the filtering first, and I'll do this all on the filtering page. And I'll get back to later how we actually stick that in the bar at the top. So card listing at the very top. We're going to put another dock panel here and stick this all in the dock panel. And this file one looks really big because I have such a large font size. 51 lines still isn't that big that I'd worry about splitting it up quite yet. Soon though. Panel dock equals top. And we're going to put a second bar right at the top for now. And I'm going to call it filter dock equals top. We'll put a switch in here. so I can get the functionality first. And this is going to be our filter panel. Filters. Probably a stack panel. And its default visibility is going to be visibility equals collapse. So it takes up no room. It has to have a name. Filters panel. And when the switch is true, while it's on, and we'll just make it visibility then. This may not be the best way to do a filtering, but it'll work for now. Okay. Okay, I don't know what happened there. Something broke in the log. Nothing actually broke. It's stalled though. Okay, I'm gonna rebuild just to make sure. What we actually have to do is the filters, and we're going to show how we hook this up to the actual filters. And I'd like to use the selection API to do this. Because we have a listing, let's do a faction listing first. So we can choose by factions. And I'm watching the preview in another browser I have, and it really is quite delayed sometimes, yeah. Oh well, not much I can do about that. Have to rely on Twitch to be faster in the future. So what we want to have filters, and we want to put the faction in here. So each item's, I don't know if we have factions yet in here. Let's check actually our models. We're using the card listing model, and our state is in card listing. We don't actually have factions in here because this is the card listing, but does our main one have factions? The main state has pages, card listing. Where do we think we should stick the factions? That's always a good question for card listing. Let's stick them directly in the main state. And let's see what they are. Netrunner, one of these already used them. The card listing must have imported it. Card view, or card must import them. Card has the faction font map in it, which is what we're going to want. We'll have to hook that up later, but I just want the factions for now. And how did it hook up to factions? Factions, entity factions. Okay, I'm going to just turn this off here. Oh, I checked. Something went wrong with the stream. Should still be streaming. Looks okay. So now we have factions on this page as well, and we just want to put them in the main view where we're going to be showing it. For each faction, let's do a, how do we want to organize this? Let's put this in a wrap panel. Text, text is usually not so good because we want to put decoration on this later. Text value equals name. Margin equals 5. And that should be enough that we can see the filter. Oh, wonderful. Let's rebuild this. I wonder if I hit an actual error. Oh, interesting. I did something pretty wrong there. Okay, see what happens. Waiting for it to load. I really need to get that new Mac at some point. These MacBook Pros are just so slow. The Macs are just such slow equipment for doing anything on. Don't want to really have to buy the full desktop for it, but we'll have to see. Okay. Oh, interesting. So I'm missing factions now. Now, where did my factions go? I should have factions here, because it's right there. Maybe there's something missing in the name, so I like to do something like this. Then you can just see if maybe I'm missing the name. Come on. No, I'm not. I'm also going to put the default value equals true here, just so we don't have to keep showing it each time. Now I have factions here. Each faction stack panel visibility should be visible, and our main state has factions, NDB factions, and we know there's factions in there. We can look at the Netrunner. Factions are exposed as factions. That should be fine. So now I have to figure out why we don't see it. I know we're on the card listing page, but the way the model is supposed to work, the state model, is that if it doesn't find factions on this model, it's going to go one view up to the next model, main view, and look at this main state, and that's where it should find factions there. And we're just going to confirm a theory here. Let's stick them in the top here as well. Panel dog equals top each items equals factions, text value equals name. Now we should see something up here in the top there. Since we don't, implies that we're missing a faction, so we haven't exported it somehow. Okay, there should be factions around here somewhere, but I see nothing now, so it means we're not exporting it anywhere. Main state, this set factions. Let's just test it the hard way. Maybe I've done something wrong. 1, 2. Create the name. Just get rid of this. We know there's something in here. Okay, so they are there. There's something there, so at least have something. Now, why do I not have factions? Have we perhaps not added a name to the factions? That's quite possible. Let's actually look what's inside the factions file. Is there a name? There is a name. It's supposed to have a name. So if I say factions there, main view factions, there should be a name. Now I need to figure out where it went to. ndb.factions. Where did it go? It should just be there. Well, let's just do some debugging. Do this .factions. Let's see what's actually in there. They're all in there. It's an object. It's .factions. Oh, these are by name. Yeah. Now I remember why this doesn't work. I wonder if we should support this feature, because what we did, factions here is not a list. Factions is an object. We associated it by name. So what we really wanted to do was, we also want a list of factions. This is the weird case. We actually want to say, well, what factions do we actually have? And so let's just create a second list here. You just do it the same way. This is going to be really silly. Factions.reduce. Do it the same way. List faction. So we have to create an array of them, and now this is factions list instead. We don't really want to expose the factions, we want to expose the list of the factions. And that should be, whoa, we don't like that. If undefined. What did I do wrong? Some sort of syntax error. Cannot read property map of undefined. That's fine, we're down there. But I have an index error that sometimes these errors are not helpful from JavaScript. There's way down somewhere else. Great. Factions list equals factions.reduce. Oh, because I can't Does reduce not work on an object? Huh. I'm gonna have to look this one up. If I have an object, how do I create a list of it? Okay, let's do a new window. How do we iterate a map? Or an object? Probably the wrong one. Structure like this, and I don't know what the best approach is, so let's just use the first example here. Apparently 4 will work. Factions list equals this. I'd really prefer to use some sort of functional approach. Factions. List.push. Factions M. Really feels like there should be a more functional approach there, but let's see if that works. Still an error. Now it's really hard to figure out what the error is. Does this log help us better? This is the exact same error. Cards. Cards is the problem. Cards.data. What has happened to that? Try reload again. Just waiting for it to reload. Unless somebody can see the actual syntax error in here. Factions list equals empty list. List.push. Oh, well, that'd be one problem. Haven't done that correctly. I wonder what happens if I press save while it's still doing the initial build. I guess it's not going to reload that, but we'll see what happens anyways. And trying to figure out what that error was. I mean, this must have been an error that something in there was wrong, but I have no idea why I was referring to cards. Like, this broke and somehow it was hiding the actual error. Faction list is not defined. Factions list? Well, now at least we get the correct error. And we had some really wacky error. Which one is this? Okay, I'll just refresh it. This might be the error I just fixed. I'm not on the most recent branch. Okay, so we actually see a lot of factions stuck up there now, so we can get rid of the things. This is supposed to be true, and they're actually listed there now. Okay, so we have that all fixed. This was primarily my fault, I guess. We just need the factions list, not a map. Now we have factions, we don't need to list them. We can get rid of them from the main view. We don't need to debug. And in the card view, card listing page, switch value equals true. And the filters, we don't need the X name in it anymore. Have the name. Okay. We have the name, we can see them all appear here. Now we want to have some way to select them. And so we're going to use a selection API for this. What this means is that selection API, I'm going to try and do this from the top of my head. No, I don't actually remember. Probably don't need a name. We need to bind this to a variable in the back end. Values equal filter factions. We'll have no limits on which ones are selected. Name, and this is a selectable, and the value equals probably the code. They have codes in them, don't they? Code. We use the code, not the name. And if this element is tapped, we're going to toggle selection on it. And we give it a name, UX name equals, just say item, something really simple. While selected, change item dot background, no, color. 2 and 3. Now this isn't bound to anything. It's probably going to give an error, but it should work anyways. Okay. Oh, stop reloading already. So now we have the basic selection. This would actually select what's there. We just need to back it with an actual, in the card listing, JS card listing, we called it filter factions. This dot filter factions. To make it an empty list at start, we can treat empty as simply having all of them. And wow, that's a really annoying error. I'm getting kind of annoyed with it. I don't know what to do about it. It keeps reloading it. And for now, I'm going to put an update button. We'll do live updating afterwards. Like, we should be able to update the list as we're changing the factions, but for now, let's just stick a button on there. Button alignment equals right, text equals update. Click it, we can make a button for this. We can make an actual model callback for this, and when you click update, it'll call the update function. So we have the update there. And what we need to do now, though, is that before we can filter, we actually have to associate the cards with a different set of list of cards. So what that means is that right now we have this dot cards as a mapping of cards. But what we really want is we want to say get filtered cards. For default, let's just return cards, this dot cards. And we'll say filtered cards. Because they're not filtered yet, we should get the exact same list. Might have just done reloading. Okay, what we can actually do now is we can use the, because these functions are combined together, it'll see when something's filtered, like the factions are filtered. And just have to remember how to use the JavaScript filter function. There should be one. Filter. Okay, so we're going to return this dot cards that filter function card. What do we have to return? True or false? Okay. We have a filter. No, this is going to have to be other binding. Get this right in JavaScript. This dot filter factions dot, is there a contains function? Contains. Find. Anybody know how to do contains correctly? Not just find, is it? Must be something simpler than find. Node.contains, that's something different. JavaScript array contains, this is an object, so how does this work? Includes, interesting. Just gotta use the right name. So includes card. What would we say the card is? The card has, no, not that one, wrong file. Card has a faction code, or it has a faction.code. Let's just make it, because it's supposed to be using the same cards. Where am I? Card listing. Card.faction.code. Will that actually be part of it? Does the code have a faction? Let's just use faction code for now, so we don't have to think about it. This should list only the ones where we have, where the faction is selected in the list. Now initially this should be empty because we have nothing in there. Good, now it's empty, which is what we expected. Now if this all worked out correctly, when I click on one, it should appear in the list. I said it should appear in the list. Come on, appear in the list. It seems to have a different impression of what's going to appear in the list, unless it's just super slow somehow. I don't know how fast this filtering function is. This might be an issue. Right, because I clicked on that and it's taking a long time. I wonder how this works with this really big list, because I'm doing this all in memory. I mean, it's only 1,000 items. I mean, even if JavaScript is slow, it shouldn't be that bad because we're filtering just 1,000 items. Quite often you might want to do a lookup to remote server for this, but I think this should work. Just why isn't it? Return. The question is, does this ever work? Well, this should be called, let's do console.ner, this.filter factions. Let's see what's in the list. And it really seems to be stuck, doesn't it? We may not actually need that update button, because the way I've written this is actually a live update, and that may not be the wisest of ideas, but I rebuild it again, it looks to have gotten stuck. Let's let her load. We could always work with a subset of the cards and do the filtering in this side, and that's probably something we can look at, because as it gets too much... Oh, sorry, there's a phone ringing over here. Just ignore that. Okay, there's nothing in there, which is fine. So just click 1. It's not calling get filtered cards. Which in its own is interesting. It's supposed to. I didn't really want to do it that way anyways, but close this one. Close this one. Because we call filtered cards here, and because we're updating the model filter factions, it's supposed to figure out that filtered cards is also similar. So let's make an update function and actually see if we're actually getting the correct filter factions. I have an update function. I said update, right? Card listing clicked equals update. Update. Well, that's interesting. Why is it not updating? Probably because it's behind this text. This bugs me sometimes, alignment equals left. So we have to be careful with visibility sometimes. That this text, it takes up the whole thing even though it's invisible. Its click space isn't just the text itself, but the whole control. And it's overlapping with that, probably causing it to. And there we now have it. And NBM is now selected. Netrunner is selected. Okay, so the update's working. Now, let's do it this way instead. This dot filtered cards equals cards. We'll get rid of the function for now. We'll come back to that. And when we update, we'll introduce new cards. This dot filtered cards equals, and we can take this filter now. This dot filter factions includes cards dot faction dot code. Card is not defined, of course. And we start with any of them. We probably should call update to start with it. So if we call update, they should all disappear. And if we put NBN and call update, good. Now we only get NBN. This is what we wanted. So at least that part works. A bit of a way around it. Now, as much as we could possibly optimize this on the Fuse side, you probably really want some sort of update here. That only when you've updated the filter does it actually update the list. And why would I add more? Does it disappear? Okay, now something's gone really weird. Should be able to include all of them. And this is getting really weird. Where are my filtered cards going to? It's showing the correct one, so we know that's working. Console.log found filtered cards.length. How many did it find? 0. Good. Found 9. Perfect. Found 161. That's what we want. Found 324. Nothing happened. Okay, as we get too many, it finds nothing. Okay, there's something weird there. It is actually finding them now. They momentarily disappear. Then they come back. And it's not the JavaScript blocking, because if it was the JavaScript blocking, we wouldn't get this found statement. Found would always just be, it would block. You wouldn't see the next block, but I can update again and I keep seeing it. And they do show up eventually, so there must be some sort of block here. I have a little defect with it. But this confirms at least that working with the large list should in theory not actually be a problem. Because if you look down here, every time I press update and that comes down, that really means that the JavaScript is completely processed, and because the UI is still responsive, it actually means that we're not blocking or marshalling or anything. So the reason they're not updating is something else. There's some other reason that it's not updating, but there's nothing to do with performance here. And I just have to figure out why it's not updating. So we'll start with just Anarch, do an update, and so we just see just Anarch once. And if you put Anarch and criminal and do an update, they'll disappear again for some reason. I don't know. Let's just go back to Anarch. For whatever reason, it likes to work with one. We're probably just getting lucky. Alright, and go back. And what we may want to do instead here is, instead of putting an update function, we can make an update when you turn the filter off. And how do you actually do that? Toggle, there's a toggled command, isn't there? Look that one up. For a swipe gesture, I know how to do it, but for a toggled command, I'm not sure anymore. Toggled. I don't think there is one. There's one for selected, but I actually don't know if we have something that says when a switch is turned off. Check the switch class. There's a value changed event. We could actually use the value changed event. That would send it back off to JavaScript though. And I'm not so excited about sending it off to JavaScript, but it's an option. Let's do it that way then. I'm going to have to add one to it. Or we can just do it via the set statements. Let's just track this in the filters, show filters. And in the card listing, this does show filters equals false. And actually, no, we're going to do it this way. This does show filters, and get show filters. Return this does show filters. Set show filters. A value, and we can call update. That would combine them together. It's the idea, and let's see if it actually does. I'm back to reloading it. So if we display the filters, oh well, that was kind of silly. Don't just set it to false. This is true. If value equals false, then we do an update. So only when it goes to false. If the value is false, then we. So when we click it, we can see the filters. We'll do nothing to display, but when we click it off, it does an update, which looks reasonably well. We should probably hide this stuff when it's not there. We can also do it on every change. and it's supposed to be fast enough. And it still has the same problem. So we might as well just do the update, but let's just leave it as that for now. It's a manual update if you want, or when you close it. Okay, and I really don't know why it doesn't display it all the time, but there's our basic filtering. Now we probably want to sort these two. I don't know what the best way to sort these are. Probably by name. Does it make sense to sort them by name, or just leave them in their natural sorting order? So, okay. Sort. What does it sort by default? By fair function. This is filtered cards equals this is filtered cards dot sort. What does the compare function want? Compare AB, comma B, return card dot name a dot name. This is a card. I don't know if this filtering makes any sense right now. I just want to show some sort of filtering. Now it should be reloading. Should be reloading, I said, and rather than not getting stuck, you should reload. Alright, now I actually had a system error. Let's rebuild that and see what happens. And if the sorting works, we can probably stick with that for now, and it at least shows that it's working. It's such a game, you probably want a bunch of different sorting criteria. Like their influence cost would probably be a reasonable one to sort on. Now by default I'm not calling sort. So let's just look for edA-qa. Just go update manually. And that's certainly not sorted. What I think I'm doing the wrong thing here. What is sort supposed to return? Okay, that's right. Okay, let's do that way. Return -1. Else. Okay, let's do this way. Return 1, return 0. So that's their compare function. Wait a second, why is this not sort now? Am I reading this right? Cards have a name, don't they? Cards do not have a name. Let's look at the card viewer. It's silly. What am I actually showing here as a name? Filtered cards. It's a title. Cards have a title. So it's probably just returning 0 every time, keeping the same order. I'm typing. Just do edA-qa and update. Okay, now it's actually sorted. So we can actually see something sorted. That's good. So we mix together two of them. We should get a mix. It's nice and sorted. And good, that's perfect. We did the sorting. That's all we wanted to show is that sorting works. We'd want to improve the filters a little bit, because having to select all of them, you might want to say, so we have nothing in there. By default, what should the filter factions have? Probably all the factions that are right. So that would be ngb.factionslist.map. This way. f.code. This should start with everything, and this dot update. Get an error. Yeah, okay, wrong order. So now it's okay, now you see the funny sorting, because this is the world of computers, that a quote comes before an A. But now we have everything filtered. Yeah, and the update, great, just update. I don't know why this stuff's disappearing. I'm really gonna have to check that out. Updating is not intended. I'm gonna leave this out now, because although you could do it with the automatic, I'd prefer to actually update it manually, because you're going to find that you don't want to automatically update all the time. Now, just to show that this filter factions is two-way, let's add a few extra filters. In the filter, I pressed the wrong key. Sublime. Sublime, where are you? You should have stayed on the window. Keep it knock. In the filter, let's just put two buttons to select all of the runner or corporation side. And back panel text. Can get rid of this filters now, and I'll just leave it there. Grid golem out equals 2. Button text equals runner, all runner. Clicked equals filter runner, let's say. Button text equals all corp. Say corporation, full name. And all runner or corporation. So now we just have to build the backing functions for that. Filter runner, filter corporation. So filter runner is a matter of updating filter factions. This dot, oh no, filter factions equals ndb.factionslist dot filter. What do we say the side code were? The factions side have side code runner and corporation. Must be one corporation here too. Side code corp. The side code is corp. Okay. Return f.side code equals runner. Then we have to map this again. I should probably make functions to do this. f.code, so we need the code for it. And so we'll do that for corporations too. Yeah, you know, we can make it higher level so we don't duplicate code. Copying and pasting is something I don't like. But that's okay for now. So if we click all runner, good. We get all the runner ones selected, and all corporations select all the corporations. And now you can see what I've done here is that this selection then, this filter factions is actually two-way binding. It doesn't matter who updates it, it will update the display. The delay there is actually because we actually have that duration on it. I mean, duration is 0.3. That actually looks somewhat long. And easing, I don't know what easing we should use. Make it smoother. Yeah, it goes a bit faster. Though maybe we don't want anything on it at all. That's not my big concern right now. So the filters, all corporation, we can update it. And I have this problem, doesn't actually update, so let's try to update again. And I'm gonna have to figure out why it's not updating. I'm gonna figure that one out, and so for next time we can add more filters here. And we should be able to get the live update working, because as we proved, it's fast enough that live updating should be doable with this number of cards, and it's just something with this display that's broken that is not doing live updating. But I think for now, this is all I really wanted to cover today. Let's just get these cards back. There we go. And so yeah, since we're all on one side, we should have. Hello, Focus VIP. No, this is not React. This is Fuse. I don't know if you've seen Fuse before. Fuse is the product we're working on for mobile development, and React is actually a project we might be looking at. But this is actually all our own back end. This works on mobile and it has a desktop preview. And you can see the code is very different than the way React works. It's all very structural. It looks more like HTML. And we're trying to keep it very high level. The JavaScript is a very simple JavaScript model, and you just basically the data is directly mapped over, and we don't have a mixing of JavaScript in high level. You can definitely put JavaScript directly in here with JavaScript tags. I just prefer not to do that. You can see, so this is over, I don't think I linked my site, fusetools.com. You take a look at that, and that's the product. And this is, I'm using some features right now that are quite new. They're not actually in the current release, but they should be there soon. The only part that's not, the part that's not in the current release is this model feature. We're still working getting that out. Everything else is in the current release, like the actual selections, the filtering, the navigation, and any transition we see here. They're also part of the current release. Hope that answers to your question. Okay, and so yeah, the filtering, this is what I wanted to do with filtering. And okay, that's correct. So we have all those filtered now. And you can still interact this way. We could make a way that you could highlight these ones if just those are selected, but I'm not sure. It's a bit of effort right now. There's no built-in way to sort of do that. It would really just be a list in Java. Every time we change the filters, if one of those is selected, we can highlight that. But let's at least clean up this code a bit, and let's make something called filter factions. And we can give it a function to filter with. And we'll take this code, we'll do this nice approach. Filter factions equals factions. Let's filter. Instead of f, we're going to call it function, pass the function, and then we do .map on the result. So now we should be able to do this dot filter factions just to clean up the code a little bit. Reduces redundancy, which is always good. And do the same for runner. I don't think we can reduce it much more than that, because we're going to put one more up here, filter factions, return true. So this takes all the default ones. It just takes everything. And that should be enough to make that work. So it just reduces the code a bit, removes the redundancy, especially the map part. It removes the redundancy on the mapping part. Okay, it worked, so something failed. Why did something fail? Oh no, it didn't fail. I just had to give it a chance to respond. That cleans up the code a little bit at least. And we could actually reuse this function then as well for other purposes if you wanted, but this is simple enough for now. And I think this is all that I wanted to cover for today. I'll check in this code again, and next time we can keep working factions or various things, but I have to figure out why this stuff isn't reloading. I'm working on, again, some very weird branches at the moment. I have a lot of special checkouts and branches that I haven't really been tested yet, and there's actually a newer one I wanted to use today, but it failed last minute because I tried to compile like a few minutes before. I think it's a really simple one, and then it has a few fixes in it as well. And we actually have a new data model coming for the Fuse preview itself, which we're hoping fixes some of these issues I have with reload and reify. But that's all I wanted to cover for today. Thank you very much. You can join me on this channel so you can see the next times I do. I'll also be doing more Netrunner and other things from Fuse, and I'll also be working on algorithms and language design with Leaf. And you can also join me on Twitter at edA-qa, or go to my website at mort-ora-y.com. And thank you very much. We'll see you next time.